hey, there's a big story about Hunter Biden. You know, Hunter Biden is an energy expert, which is why he was on an energy board in the Ukraine, a country the United States just helped overthrow. Anyway, New York Post has this story. So the New York Post got a hold of some secret emails. Somehow it funneled through Rudolph Giuliani, of all people. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they got a hold of these emails that show Hunter Biden being, the sleazy bag influence peddler that he is, right? The Bidens are all corrupt. Ukrainian exec thanked Hunter Biden for opportunity to meet the Veep tab. But this isn't the whole story. The bigger story is that this story is being censored by Facebook and Twitter. So let's get into it. The never-before-revealed meeting is mentioned in a message of appreciation from an advisor to the board of Burisma, that's that energy company in the Ukraine, sent Hunter Biden on April 17th, 2015, about a year after Hunter joined the Burisma board at a salary of up to $50K a month. I heard it was 80, but we'll see. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. Wow. It's really an honor and a pleasure, the email reads. An earlier email from May 24th also shows Burisma's number 3 executive asking Hunter for advice on how you could use your influence on the company's behalf. And here's Joe Biden being asked about it.
What was your role as vice president in charge of policy in Ukraine and your son's job in Ukraine? How is that not a conflict of interest?
It's not a conflict of interest. There's been no indication of any conflict of interest from Ukraine or anywhere else. Period. I'm not gonna respond to that. Let's focus on the problem. Focus on this man, what he's doing, that no president has ever done. No president.
What was your role as...
So that's all they got to say. He won't answer the question about it. No, there's no conflict of interest. He just says it. He just says it. So when he's and they all do that. They all yell at the press when they're asked a question. Trump does that. Nancy Pelosi does it. Joe Biden does it. They're all Donald Trump. Joe Biden is the moral superior of no one, including Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi is the moral superior of no one, including Donald Trump. They're all Donald Trump.
Vice president in charge of policy in Ukraine and your son's job in Ukraine. How is that not a conflict?
How is that not a conflict of interest?
It's not a conflict of interest. There's been no indication of any conflict of interest.
There's been no indication. The indication would be, Joe, that you're the vice president in charge of Ukraine policy for the United States, and your son has a job in the Ukraine, a no-show job for $50K a month on an energy board. That would be it. That'd be the indication. Walking death rattle. Twitter, Facebook clamped out. Now, here's the real story. We know Joe Biden is corrupt. We know his kid is corrupt. We know his kid peddled influence for money through his father, the vice president. We know this happened. But the real story is now Twitter and Facebook are censoring that story before they even fact check it. They're going to go, it sounds sketchy, so we're gonna limit that story. Here's what you do. If you really are afraid that story's not real, you then hire somebody to check it out and write their own report about the story, and then you put your report up. You don't censor somebody else's story. Otherwise, Facebook is being a publisher. So the reason why... So if somebody writes something in a book that's defamatory that you can prove in court, a civil court, and receive damages from the guy who wrote it, the reason why you sue the guy who wrote it is because you can't sue the guy who sold it. So you can't sue the bookstore, but you can sue the guy who wrote it and the publisher. So now Facebook, and so the reason why you can't sue the bookstore is because the bookstore isn't publishing those and they're not writing them. They're just selling them. They're just a platform for sales. They're not a publisher. They're a retailer. So that's different. Facebook is also trying to say they are not a publisher. So you can't sue them when something goes up on their website that hurts you personally. But they are a publisher. So now they're curating what goes on their website. So now they're taking responsibility for the content of the books in their store. They're taking responsibility for the content of the books in their store, which means you can now sue them. They should be sued. But they won't be because the government's going to protect them. Why? Because Facebook and Twitter work for the government. They work with the CIA and the FBI. They don't work against them. They work with them. That's why. So Twitter took action on Wednesday by preventing users from sharing links to the story in tweets or direct messages. The decision was made based on the platform's hacked materials policy, a spokesperson for Twitter told The Hill. The same policy was implemented over the summer to ban links to a trove of hacked police documents called blue links. So they're exposing, again, so somebody comes along and does actual journalism and Facebook squashes it. According to the policy discussion of hacks, including reporting on a hack or sharing press coverage of hacking, that according to the policy, so the policy at Facebook is that including reporting on a hack or sharing press coverage of hacking does not violate their rules. So the Twitter spokesman, so this doesn't violate their rules, and they're not telling you what rule it violates. The Twitter spokesman did not immediately respond to questions about why the post reporting is not included under that exemption. Facebook also took action to limit the article's spread, but offered few details regarding those steps. So they need to be regulated now. They need to be making into a public utility now, Facebook. Facebook and Google account for 70 to 80% of all the news people read in the United States.
That's amazing.
So that's dangerous. That's unhealthy for a democracy. Do you see the democracy we're living in? That's because of that. That's because 6 companies control all the fucking information in this country. And now Google and Facebook control 70 to 80% of all the news read by people. They can control an election. They can control a government. They can control a culture. They can control a country. They have way too much influence. Way too much. And that should be broken up in the interest of the electorate. And now you're just letting the people who control all the news information to decide what is news and what isn't. This is the guy from Facebook. He says, while I will intentionally not link to the New York Post, I want to be clear that this story is eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's third-party fact-checking partners. That's that guy from CNN. So they'll hire a hack from CNN who lies to you about Syria, Libya, and everything else, and he's going to fact-check people. Or they'll get a guy from the military. They had a guy from the military and the guy from CNN fact-checking this show. Again, CNN doesn't get to fact-check me. I fact-check you. You don't judge me. I judge you. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform. We're censoring. We're censoring a news article from a newspaper.
But reducing sounds so much better,
Yeah.
Jimmy. I like the way it sounds. It doesn't sound nefarious whatsoever.
In the meantime, we are reducing the First Amendment and freedom.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. And we're going to reduce your freedom. According to the data from CrowdTangle, which is owned by Facebook, the link to the Post story has received more than 245,000 interactions on the platform despite Facebook's intervention. Laughing out loud thinking about Twitter and Facebook applying these standards to the New York Times report on or the Washington Post anonymous sourcing. They'll never do that. What about the New York Times and Washington Post bullshit story about that Russian was giving bounties for Afghans to kill? That was completely made up bullshit. Did they fact check that? No. They'll never do that to the New York Times or the Washington Post. You're going to find garbage, bullshit, 100% false propaganda stories on the front page of the New York Times and Washington Post every day. You know the star reporter for the Washington Post was a pro-Iraq war cheerleader, Dave Weigel? How did he get this job to be the star reporter for the Washington Post? He used to do cheer on war. He had pro-war rallies for the Iraq war. Oh, what is your qualifications to be the writer for the Washington Post? Did you do any pro-war rallies? You're hired. That's the fucking people that write for the Washington Post and the New York Times. Garbage people. Anybody worth their shit gets fired from those places. And Facebook will never do this to New York Times. The next time they lie to you into a war, they're not going to do that. The next time they lie to you about Syria gas attacks, New York Times straight up lied to you about gas attacks. Straight up. Page after page. They won an award for their false reporting on Syria. That's true. The vice president's son doing coke and getting a no-show job in Ukraine would be a lot funnier if that kind of Western-led corruption was not responsible for gutting the country over the past 30 years. Every fucking story about Russiagate would have to be flagged because it's completely false and unsourced. Every story about Russiagate would have to be flagged and censored, or their distribution would be reduced, as Orwell would say. If they, at every Russiagate story, because everyone was false and everyone used unsourced information. Everyone. The Steele dossier, unsourced and false. But they don't do that to that. This is selective censorship. It would be one thing if it was uniformly imposed. It's not. It's selective. This is Glenn Greenwald. He says, you're seeing the immense, unchallengeable, unaccountable power of Silicon Valley giants over the flow of information. Imagine if Google joins in. What's so amazing is that they never wanted this role. It was foisted on them by people, led by journalists demanding they censor. I know people in the news business that cheer on Facebook and Twitter censorship. People who sit at the top of media companies, news media companies, who say to me, well, what are they supposed? They have to do something. No, they fucking don't. That's like saying, well, Barnes and Nobles, they have to black out some of the sentences in some of the books, right? Don't they have to? Doesn't Barnes and Noble, doesn't Borders Books have to black out some of the pages in some of the books? That was a lawyer. It was the head of a media company said that to me. I'm a pothead comedian. And I have a better grasp on these issues than people who went to a fucking Ivy League law school. Because it doesn't take intelligence to see through this. It takes clarity and courage. It is amazing to see people on the left who cannot wait for censorship. They welcome censorship. And the only thing I can think of, it's out of an extreme naivete. Extreme. Complete lack of sense of history. And now Twitter and Facebook are just another extension of the CIA. They're just another extension of the FBI and the CIA. And what's wrong? What's wrong if they start censoring Alex Jones? Well, it gets people used to censorship. I'll tell you that. It certainly does. And now I'll guarantee you every blue check Hollywood asshole on Twitter, I bet you Andy Richter is puffing up his fucking fat chest about this today, going, that's good. More censorship. Because he'll never say anything that's dangerous or outside the bounds of fucking polite society, because he'll lose his TV show. So that's why he'll be pro-censorship and guys like that. That's why they don't say a goddamn thing about Julian Assange. That's why they won't. If they're not cheerleading this, they won't say anything about it. Let's see all the fucking free speech guys. Let's see Judd Apatow screaming about free speech. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Let's see Bill Maher screaming about free speech. That's not going to happen. Bill Maher is a bought and sold fucking neoliberal right-wing tool. Pro-war, bloodthirsty imperialist. That's what passes for a lefty comedian in the United States. That's Bill Maher. A right-wing, bloodthirsty imperialist who thinks Medicare for all is a fucking crazy, some crazy hippie idea. So here we go. It's here. Censorship's here, and everybody's cool with it. And I can't wait for. I'm sure Jack will never go back on fucking Joe Rogan. You know, Jack follows me on Twitter. He'll follow me on Twitter. He won't come on this fucking show. I'll guarantee you that. He'll never answer an actual question. He went on Joe Rogan, got dismantled by Joe fucking Rogan. So, here you go. Here you go. Glenn Greenwald is exactly right. And where is that call coming for censorship? It's coming from the left. It's coming from the pretend left. They're not real. If you call for censorship, you're not a lefty. If you want Carlos Maza, if you go along with Carlos Maza or anybody calling for any censorship anywhere, you're not a lefty. That's a right-wing position. Censorship is right-wing bullshit. And if you call for censorship or deplatforming, that's called right-wing authoritarianism. And there's a big authoritarianism streak that runs on people who consider themselves on the left. Their knee-jerk is, deplatform that guy. Deplatform him. That comes out of grown-ups' mouths in front of a camera when someone says something they disagree with. Deplatform that guy. Deplatform him. And you think you're on the left? You're not. You're a dumb lemming, and you're a fucking authoritarian. And so here it is. This is the culmination of all the people who pushed for. Here it is. Now they're just straight up censoring news stories. Just straight up censoring news stories. And if that news story is bogus, write a fucking editorial and post it. That's what you do. You don't take down someone else's fucking opinion or news story. And you certainly don't let an unelected, unaccountable bureaucrat, billionaire in Silicon Valley decide what is censorship and what isn't. That's who's deciding. There's no board. There's no citizen-appointed fucking... There's nothing. There's nothing. New York Post doesn't go to court and go, hey, you can't censor. They don't get to do that. No. Unaccountable billionaires in bed with the fucking CIA and the FBI. That's who's controlling the information in the United States. Do you think that's healthy for democracy or unhealthy for democracy? Let's see if the executive producer of The Simpsons, let's see if Dana Gould has anything to say about this. I'm going to guess not. None of those motherfuckers know what's going on in the real world. They're all millionaires. They have no idea. Trump bothers them on TV. But this kind of shit, they're going to be either cheering this on or silent about it. Let's see where's Keith Olbermann on this? Where's Bill Maher on this? Where's the loudest Russiagators in the world on this? Where are the loudest Russiagators in the world? Where are they on this? Where are they on Nancy Pelosi snapping at a reporter, Wolf Blitzer, for just asking a question of Nancy Pelosi? And Nancy Pelosi snaps on Wolf Blitzer like Donald Trump. How did your lefty news show report that? Was your lefty news show on the side of the reporter asking a powerful person a question for the first time in 5 years? Or was your news show on the side of the fucking corrupt politician who was fucking you in the middle of COVID? That would be pretty interesting. That's a real eye-opener. Because they're the same people who cheer on this shit. They're the same people who cheered on censorship. Well, what's the matter if they censor Alex Jones? If they censor someone I don't like, that's okay, right? People cheering on censorship are people who know they'll never say anything that offends the power structure that needs them to be censored. Guys with MSNBC contracts are never going to have to be censored by YouTube or Google or Twitter or Facebook. They're never going to say anything that's censorable, ever. So that's why they're for stuff like this. That's why they say stuff like, deplatform him, deplatform him. And a jagoff pothead comedian in the studios of the Young Turks 5 fucking years ago warned people about this shit. And it's still happening. Okay, so now you guys are everybody's going to be cool with Mark Zuckerberg being the gatekeeper of who gets to see things and who doesn't. What news gets reported and what doesn't. 70% of people, America gets their news from Facebook and Google. Okay, welcome to Brazil, you blue check motherfuckers. You stupid assholes. Dumb on fucking purpose. You went to law school and you're cheering on fucking censorship, you asshole. It's like Barack Obama repealing habeas corpus. You're all morally bankrupt. You all live in a neoliberal fucking bubble. Barack Obama knew exactly what he was doing when he handed off the spying powers to Donald Trump. He knew exactly what he was doing. They're all corrupt criminals. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.